So, good morning, everyone, esteemed colleagues, panelists, and attendees. It is a privilege to welcome you all to this critical discussion on transforming food systems to address the intertwined crisis of climate change and food security. Your presence here reflects the shared commitment to tackling one of the most pressing challenges of our time. Today, we are pleased to engage with a diverse panel of experts, each bringing unique perspectives from various disciplines and regions. Together, they will illuminate pathways to ensure our global food systems are sustainable, resilient, and equitable while significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Let me set the stage by briefly outlining the challenges we face and the opportunities that lie ahead. The food system, encompassing all the activities from production to consumption, is both a victim and a contributor to climate change. On one hand, agriculture accounts for 22% of global greenhouse gas emissions and is primary driver of deforestation and biodiversity loss. On the other, shifting patterns, climate patterns, manifest as droughts, floods, and declining soil fertility are increasingly compromising global food security. Paradoxically, despite producing enough food to nourish the planet, hunger affects approximately 800 million people globally, with acute impacts in regions like Sub-Saharan Africa and South America. At the same time, food waste and loss represent nearly of all produce, all of food produce wasting, a third all of produce food wasting, vital resources, water, energy, and labor. Compounding these challenges are population growth and changing dietary preferences, which intensify demand for resource-intensive commodities like meat and dairy. Climate change exacerbates these pressures, reducing crop yields and altering agricultural landscapes. By 2050, corn production, for example, could decline by up to 25% globally. Why this matter? The stakes are enormous. Agriculture, forestry, and fisheries provide livelihoods for 50% of the global workforce and serve as the foundation for global food and nutritional security. Yet the current system's environmental and economic costs are unsustainable. Biodiversity loss, land degradation, malnutrition, and pollution are eroding the natural and social capital upon which humanity depends. To meet the needs of Project 9 billion people by the mid-century, we must redefine how food is produced, distributed, and consumed. Agricultural expansion is no longer viable. Instead, the focus must shift to smarter, more efficient, and equitable practices that prioritize climate action while advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. This session aims to explore transformative solutions to these challenges. Together, we will examine innovative practices, how can we adopt climate-smart agriculture to optimize resources and reduce emissions. Integrated approach, how can food systems deliver co-benefits across all SDGs, including poverty alleviation, hunger reduction, and climate action. And the tools for transition, what policies and or financial mechanisms can enable this transformation. By leveraging these insights, we hope to inform actionable pathways that harmonize greenhouse gas reduction with the development priorities within the food system context. This integrated approach is not only necessary but urgent if we are to build a future that balances planetary health with human well-being. Let's recognize that solutions we need will require shared responsibility and bold action. Together, we can transform our food systems into engines of sustainability, resilience, and hope for the generations to come. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to a stimulating and productive dialogue.
Thank you. Am I audible? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to introduce with our panelists today. We have Ms. Diana Gutierrez. Is a senior research associate at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CGIAR. Diana is a doctor in animal science. She also has an MSc in biology and geotechnics from the University of Antioquia, Colombia. She has over 10 years of experience in academic research with a focus on data management and analysis. Diana's expertise lies in analyzing the dynamics and drivers that influence land use change from a food systems perspective. In her work, she adopts a comprehensive approach that incorporates perspective related to conflict, peace building, and sustainable development at both global and regional level. In recent months, she has been engaged in the development of conceptual framework for integrating climate change mitigation and the sustainable development goals. Our second panelist is Mr. Dr. Nandan Mukherjee. Mr. Mukherjee presently leads the Adaptation and Resilience Wing of the University of Dundee's UNESCO Center for Water Law, Policy and Science. Also, he has been engaged with the Center for Climate Change and Environmental Research, CGIAR, BRAC University. He has been involved in the UNFCCC's Loss and Damage Working Group since its creation in 2010 on behalf of Bangladesh's team of negotiation. His doctoral work also focuses on loss and damage in the Ganges-Brahmaputra River Basin. The UN Risk Award in 2019 and the Times Higher Education's special commendation as the best researcher in the arts and social science category both recognize Dr. Mukherjee's research ability around climate resilience home solutions. We welcome Dr. Mukherjee as our panelist. Our third panelist is Margarita Gutierrez. Margarita Gutierrez is a mechanical engineer with a master's in environmental economics from Universidad de los Andes in Colombia and his specializations in environmental public policy from Universidad San Pablo CEU and the London School of Economics. With 20 years of experience in climate change and environmental policies, including 12 years dedicated to implementing climate change projects in Latin America, she is known for her leadership and ability to develop strategic visions that address complex environmental challenges. Passionate about generating economic and social benefits through nature conservation and climate change solution, she has led benefits through nature conservation and climate change. Currently, she is working as policy advisor for building synergies in biodiversity and climate change, climate health, and designing JTE projects in vulnerable communities in Colombia, and finalizing the advisor for evaluating Colombia's climate policy for AFD 2023-24. She has extensive experience collaborating with public and private sectors as well as civil society organizations to enhance well-being in developing countries. Former coordinator of Latin America's Climate Disclosure Alliance, Deputy Director of the Nature Conservancy in the Andean region, Technical Advisor of the Vice Minister of Environment, Director of Climate Change, and Deputy Director of Environmental Studies of IDEAM. We welcome Ms. Margarita Gutierrez as our panelist. Thank you very much for joining with us. My first question to our panelists is, how can food systems support to achieve social development goals? And in this regard, if you can give us some example which is cost effective and scalable as well. I would like to go to Diana Gutierrez first.
Thank you. So, SDGs, food system or sustainability of the food system can actually advance many of the SDGs. Not only Hunger Zero, which is SDG 2, but also it can support SDGs like food, climate action, biodiversity conservation, which is life on Earth. And from the perspective of the food systems, we have created a framework that you can see a brief description on the brochures that you find in your seats. And in this framework, there is a key component that speaks about how we can integrate mitigation in the SDGs, mitigation actions from the food system. So for this, we are specifically leveraging on the co-benefits that the actions on mitigation can deliver to the SDGs. For example, we know that if we support like responsible consumption, we can not only have benefits on the climate change mitigation by reducing waste in food, which is one of the biggest emitters in the food systems. But we can also have the approaches to have greater efficiency in the food system. So we are going to have, for instance, supporting the SDGs 15. So knowing these connections, identifying these connections and the ways that it can have co-benefits or even the trade-offs, is knowing this, we can just prepare or develop or identify strategies as well that help us to maximize the co-benefits or the synergies that we found and to minimize the risks that trade-offs represent. A concrete example comes from our work in Colombia. We have implemented land use systems, sustainable land use systems in conflict-affected areas. We have found that these systems actually support communities not only at the environmental level, but at the social and the economic level too. We have two concrete examples, which is agroforestry and cocoa systems, and then the other one is silvopastoral systems. Both of them support communities, reparation of the social fabric, and also the cohesion in these communities, which is like peace in the SDG 16. And the other benefit that we found is economic, of course, because it can improve the production yields, but by the interventions that you can do it with agroforestry and planting trees into the systems, they can diversify the food and diversify the income source of these communities. So we are improving not just environmental level, but also at the social and economic level with these alternatives that we have promoting Colombia.
We'd like to hear from Dr. Mukherjee, your opinion here.
I'm a boring data guy, but I promise that I'm not going to bore you with clumsy statistics today. But if I may, request you to remember one number which is very important and related to what we have done to this world. It's 300 gigaton. It's the amount of additional carbon that we added into the atmosphere since the last millennia, only from burning fossil fuels. If we add other sources, the number will be double, but let's stick to that single number, 300 gigaton. Food system is very important because by only providing solutions to food systems, around food system, we can revert at least 70% what we have done to this world, like this 70% of 300 gigaton. We are already using this world as a dumpster of carbon. So it's our roles and responsibility to revert that. So I'm going to talk about 5 solutions that has the potential to revert the carbon deposition by 220 gigatons. I've been negotiating on climate change loss and damage since the inception. Unfortunately, the progress in negotiations are very slow, sometimes slower than the glacial retreat, but I made a promise to myself, stop complaining and act now. That's why today I'm going to only focus on solutions. First solution is, each year, we waste around 1 billion tons of food. How big is 1 billion ton? 1 billion ton by volume is equivalent to 2,700 Empire State Building. While in sub-Saharan Africa, we have 1 out of every 5 person living in hunger. On the other side of the world, in China, we waste around 125 million tons of food every year. India, 78 million tons of food every year. So if we can minimize this gap, hunger versus wastage, that has the biggest potential of 108 gigaton carbon can be saved by only stop wasting our food. The second point is shifting to plant-rich diets. Animal agriculture alone contributes to 14.5% of global emission, which alone exceeds the emission coming from the transportation sector, all car, bus, train, and air. So if we just move from the current diet to plant-rich diet, that means, if I give you an example, producing 1 kilogram of beef takes 15 times more water than wheat. So swapping one steak with a bowl of lentils can save 78.3 gigaton of carbon. Third solution that I would like to propose is protecting and reweighting the peatlands. Peatlands are wetlands, an excellent source of storing carbon. So they store twice as much carbon as all forests combined, but only occupies 3% of global land use. So if we can reconvert all these peatlands and weight those, that would save us 25 gigaton. Fourth is regenerative cropping. Just by changing our cropping practice, for example, no-till farming or crop rotations, we can save 15 gigatons. And finally, by conserving agriculture, that means minimize soil disturbances and keep the ground covered. For example, African farmers boost their rice yields just by covering the ground, and it can save up to 12 gigatons of water. This is the accounting of 220 gigaton. That means 2/3 of the problem that we have created can be resolved only by agriculture. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Now we'd like to hear from Margarita Gutierrez.
Thank you, and thank you to my fellow panelists. I would add from those two excellent expositions that sustainable food production is at the center of the adaptation measures that we need to talk, and some mitigation measures we already see. In Colombia, we have 3 great examples. One more on the national and programmatic level. We made not only silvopastoral but sustainable cattle ranching in different scales, in different sizes, and in different markets also. Very programmatic and a policy approach. We started more than 10 years ago with projects, and now it's a national policy that we need to move towards sustainable cattle ranching, recognizing the different types of arrangement that we need. And in that types of arrangement, we recognize community-based agricultural systems. Also, we recognize there are marketable and very important, huge amount of land that we use for cattle ranching, but that we need to promote more partnerships and more like kind of industrialized goals related to climate smart agriculture also. This is super important also in some key ecosystems, and all the program approach that we have developed in Colombia that is not only have to do with carbon, but also it focuses on some special areas and protected areas where the costs are around the area. So I think that this is not only solving some food issues, but also poverty issues, and in my country, the peace the peace agreements that we have are in the center of this sustainable food production. The other one is the planning. The land use planners in Colombia, they're always putting some technical assistance, improving in technical assistance, and also trying to develop some agricultural schemes that really supports development and that really join together the urban areas and also rural areas. This has been always a challenging matter in Colombia in territorial planning, and now we have been solving how the city interconnects with the rural area and understand where the food is coming from. This is super important for adaptation for the cities, but also to promote a more economic development model to those areas that lives around the cities and not to concentrate all the areas in the cities. And finally, in the more local and in those areas where are most vulnerable people that are very poor, we have a very inequality country in Colombia. And this applies also for other countries in Latin America, as Peru, Mexico. The small-scale sustainable production is super important not only for food security, but also for health, for their well-being, for supporting and make more resilient the community also in their financial systems, and how they can tackle together and build associations that can bring together the people to resolve other issues later than food. And I meaning like nurseries for forestry restoration, and also nurseries with food production where they can diversify their diet. So these three are examples on how important is food security, and also how it is related to climate change and other SDGs.
Thank you very much, Margarita. So, from our first question, what we got from both of our Colombian panelists, that there is actually a connection from the climate change and the poverty as well. But considering the Colombia's peace building situation, that is also be connected to the climate change as well. Diana, she clearly mentioned about the mitigation of climate change and how work is reflecting that. Also, Margarita, she mentioned the community agricultural practices, also the resilience, nutritional resilience food production in Colombia. Mr. Mukherjee, she reflected on his 5 solution, wastage, then again cropping pattern, other solutions as well. So what we can draw here, that we all need to come all together to provide a good solution, and here comes the finance. So my second question is, what financial mechanism we require to support a scalable solution in the food system? And I would like to go to Mr. Mukherjee first here.
So I'll mainly speak around the solutions that I proposed, because finance is very important, and where this finance is coming from, sourcing the finance is even more critical. So the first solution that, the first option that I would like to propose is de-risking climate finance from blended source. I'll give an example. In Bangladesh, BRAC has a microfinance program. They have introduced a crop insurance program. The money is coming from Swiss embassy, and one of the national insurance providers are covering that insurance. So this is the way we can transfer the risk from poor farmer to agencies or big corporates so that they can finance for the loss and damage of the crops. Second option is the most established source for supporting climate smart agriculture is from the Green Climate Finance or Adaptation Fund sources, and Bangladesh and South Asian countries and other parts of the world. Example, in Africa, they're getting those finances from Green Climate Fund. Third point can come from trading the carbons that we are saving. The way I said that only by implementing 5 solutions we can offset 220 gigatons of carbon, which can provide a sustainable financial solution for those who are in need of that. Fourth point I'm trying to make is 1 unit of investment in agriculture yields 10 units of investment in return. So agriculture is a very profitable sector if we can improve the efficiency, if we can offset the loss and damage exposure from agriculture. So definitely private sector entities through public-private partnership will be encouraged. These are the 4 options that I can think about right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. I'll go to Diana then.
Thank you. So I think that the mechanisms already exist. They only just need to be adjusted or adapt to support sustainable agriculture, sustainable food systems. We have an excellent example from Colombia. We collaborate with the Minister of Environment to amend regulation on an instrument and mechanisms that was created for the peace agreement. And with these mechanisms, companies can pay their taxes through the supporting of the some developments in the most affected regions for conflict. So with these changes, what we proposed was to change that these mechanisms not only could support works for taxes, like infrastructure for public service or education or roads, but also could support like green businesses. So they are now supporting or able to supporting zero deforestation value change or sustainable land use systems. We have registered a project with the help of the Minister of Agriculture and with the government of Caquetá, local government of Caquetá, which is a region that is very affected by the conflict. And this project allows companies to invest in an association that grows cocoa, agroforestry cocoa. And this project has actually been presented as an option for no market approach. So that is like an alternative, because we know that market-based approach have a lot of limitations, since the high cost, the lack of capacities for the consort countries to do MRB and otherwise. So it is a nice opportunity to have those kind of mechanisms that can leverage on non-market approach to support a more equity and inclusive mechanisms that goes beyond the monetizing the actions of the climate change mitigation.
Margarita, over to you.
I would emphasize in 3 types. The first one is, for example, payment for ecosystem services. It's a very good mechanism that we have been used for supporting watersheds, and in that support, we need to use sustainable cattle ranching and other arrangement in food security that has been paid because of the enterprises that manage the water. They had to invest 1% of their utilities in payment for ecosystem services in Colombia since 12 years ago, kind of, or more. The other one is, for example, and I think we need also to build economic capacity in the rural sectors, and this is sometimes not well seen. Maybe I'm going to be very eruptive here, but microcrediting has been demonstrated in Latin America that is being very useful to make people understand that the rural areas are also businesses, and there are small areas and small crops need to be treated as businesses, and that they receive some, not only the credits but also financial assistance in building their businesses. So I think this is we have in Colombia, for example, a microcredit lines aligned with ecosystem-based adaptation, and we have been we have had these examples also in other countries like in Peru and Costa Rica. And I think it's very important not only for support the food system but also for support the economic systems in the rural areas. And then the last one, I think I'm going to mention also the tax of carbon. In Colombia, the big enterprises that use oil products have to pay a tax for carbon, and that tax is invested in sustainability of areas that are related to national parks. So there are other institutions and there are other mechanisms, and I will highlight these three.
Thank you very much. So from our second question, what we got that Mr. Mukherjee, he showed an example of microinsurance and how microinsurance can play a very good role to save smallholder farmer from the loss and damage of their crop. Diana, she said that the importance of regulation, because they already have some financial mechanism in Colombia, and how much regulation can play here. I got two things from Margarita. One is microcredit, which is very interesting because in Bangladesh we already have microcredit businesses, and how microcredit plays the same role in Colombia to enhance the businesses of the farmers, and also the carbon tax, which we are speaking a lot about the carbon tax and what big enterprises, they need to take the responsibility of the carbon emission. So thank you very much for the panelists to join us, and thank you all for listening to us. Thank you. Sorry. Oh, hi. I'm sorry. Uh, if you have any questions from the audiences, we'd like to take some question here. Uh, we have our panelists with us. So, any question from the panelists? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.